Welcome back to the Dialed In podcast. I'm Mo, and as always, I'm with Gene. Gene, how you doing, buddy?
I am great. The summer is upon us.
What's on your wrist today?
You know, today was a day of many errands, so I kept it utilitarian and tool. Wearing the old reliable Rolex Submariner, probably my first real luxury watch, 2012, and it's just old faithful, old reliable, gets the job done. What about you?
Well, I went the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I am wearing my Patek Philippe annual calendar 49471A, and as everyone knows, because I've spoken about it ad nauseum, the dial is co-signed by Tiffany & Co.
I mean, how can you not wear that every day? It's just such a fantastic piece. It's one of a kind.
I will say that so it's great because it's steel and it's sort of rare in that sense. There's a steel annual calendar and it has a full bracelet on it, and I actually really like the bracelet. But what I will say is that it's fully polished. Ooh, like every aspect of the case, the bracelet is polished. So one, it's not the best desk diving watch, if you will, and two, like, I don't know, it's pretty shiny on the wrist, and wearing it in the sunshine with a t-shirt, it's a little bit of a...
It's blinding people.
Yeah.
But I mean, with that sort of watch, your wrist walks into the room first.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Tell me, Gene, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so we thought, given that it's summer and July 4th is right on the horizon, that it might be a good time to talk about summer watches, what actually qualifies as a summer watch, and some really good examples, things that we like, and some recommendations that we can make. Thought it would be, particularly timely right around now. So that's the topic for today.
Awesome. So let's get into it then. As always, here on the Dialed In podcast, no barrier to entry, just a love for watches. So let's get dialed in. Gene, before we jump into summer watches, and I know I always do this, but my ADD brain wants to tell you something before we dive into the main topic. I teased it on the pod last week. I got invited by IWC to a screening of the F1 movie in New York. They had one in London and a few other places, I think. And it was, for those who know New York, it was at the IPIC Theater on Fulton Street, which is, for those who don't know, really nice theater. They sort of have these recliner chairs set up in pairs in each theater, with like a table in the middle, and you can order drinks, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, and food throughout the entire movie directly to your seat. This is like in normal times, not when IWC is throwing an event. But the event itself was awesome. Walk in and check in, and you're there's like a photo op moment where you're like, there's all this IWC display, and you see Brad Pitt's kit basically on the wall, and you can take a picture in front of it, and then you go up the escalator, and we went to the bar area they have in the theater, and it was fully open bar, which is always a plus, past hors d'oeuvres. And what was really cool is they had a whole bunch of watches out, and like weirdly, like not super secure. Like there wasn't like a ton of like security around, and I think they just sort of trusted the people that were in the room.
You've all been vetted.
Yeah, but yeah, you could just go like try on watches, and there were a bunch of different IWC associates there explaining.
Could you buy watches actually?
You could not, and it's funny because I did mention that I would have likely made a stupid purchase in the moment, because I tried on the new Pilot's Watch automatic in the Mojave that had literally just come out.
Yeah.
Which I love, and I know we talked about the Lake Tahoe many episodes ago when that came out around Watches and Wonders, but you kind of ruined every iteration of that watch for me.
When I pointed out its one flaw.
Yes, and for listeners, I don't know if we did that on the pod.
I don't think we did.
But Gene pointed out to me that I was like waxing poetic about the Lake Tahoe version of this watch, and I even actually like the Mojave even more, which is more of like a tan beige ceramic. The watch is awesome. The case is ceramic. The strap is color matching in a rubber, if I remember correctly, or maybe rubber and canvas. But Gene pointed out that the crown is in steel, and not like painted steel to match the ceramic color. It is just like bright silver steel, as any other watch would be. Right. And I cannot unsee it now.
Yeah, it's like they found some extra parts in the warehouse and decided to throw it on there. It just feels like it's such an easy thing to do, to either do it in ceramic or color match it with, a paint job. But they didn't do it, and it just sticks out like a sore thumb to me.
Well, now it does.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, man. I would have bought that Mojave watch had they like allowed me to purchase it at that event, because I loved it so much when I put it on, other than for the steel crown.
Yeah.
But it is less pronounced, or I guess less stark against the Mojave than it is against the bright white ceramic of the Lake Tahoe. Anyway, moving on from that watch, another cool thing they had was they had the watches worn in the movie.
Right. Oh, the actual watches worn in the movie.
Yeah, so they had Brad Pitt's Ingenieur that he wears in the movie, which they did release that 1,000-piece limited edition green dial Ingenieur with the gold-plated indices and hands. The difference is that the one he wears in the movie is like, I guess meant to be his father's or something, and so it's meant to be like the 1970s version of the Ingenieur. And so it is in that style. And while some people put it on their wrist, I did not know I could ask for to have that watch taken out of the case and put on my wrist. But I did see on Instagram later that there were a few lucky people that did get to try on that watch and take some videos. But yeah, it was a super cool sort of like pre-movie cocktail event. Then we all were ushered into the theater where there were like tote bags waiting for us with Apex GP hats. Apex is the fictional team in the movie. The hat says IWC on it, obviously. They had like a little booklet in there explaining the watches from the movie. They had like these Formula One cars made out of chocolate in an IWC box, much like, Gene, if you remember when we went to the GP in Montreal.
I do.
Here, they had that car in the hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Very similar, but this one obviously said IWC. And just so you know, Gene, I did get an extra swag bag for you. So you have all this stuff waiting for you.
That's very kind. That's very kind.
Of course.
And did you get an opportunity to take a picture of a cardboard cutout of Brad Pitt?
I did not.
Oh, okay. Missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity. But I will say on the movie quickly, and I, this is not an F1 podcast, so I'm not going to go.
No spoilers.
But I will connect it back to the watches in it. I think, product partnerships and placement in movies, especially one that is like so advertised, like this IWC and F1 movie partnership, can be incredibly cheesy and just not done well. My personal opinion is that this was done incredibly well. Like it was in your face, but then again, watches and branding is in your face in Formula One.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So
ubiquitous.
Exactly. So it wasn't more in your face than it normally is on any race Sunday. I will say 2 hours and 45 minutes was the runtime of the movie.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. It's long. It was awesome. And in fact, I was uncomfortable for maybe the last hour because I really needed to pee, but I did not want to get up. So to me, this is like the perfect movie for like a Sunday afternoon on your couch when it's on demand, because you can pause. But it was super exciting. It was like Top Gun on wheels, Brad Pitt was really good in it. Obviously, like it features a lot of the drivers from the past few years because that's when they've been filming it. And they were actually on like the Silverstone track. And if you remember at the time on Instagram and stuff, you could see that they did two national anthems because they wanted to film one of them for the movie, and they had Brad Pitt and his co-star on the track, like on the grid. And so that was cool. It was cool to see it all come together in this movie. Highly recommend a watch.
Okay.
Again, maybe go to the theater if you're a theater going person, but like it's definitely one of those great movies for the couch.
Well, presumably it'll make its way to Apple TV at some point, considering that they produced the movie. But I plan on seeing it later this week. Definitely want to try to catch it on the big screen. My sense is that it's meant to be kind of this immersive experience. So we'll try to watch it that way, and we'll remind myself to go to the bathroom first.
Yes, and given our age, that still won't help.
Okay.
So I think that's it for the recap of the event. I will say that, like, here's one sort of hot take, if you will. And mind you, yes, this is an invite for IWC clients, so maybe this is to be expected. But you know, they released 1,000 pieces of that Sunny Haze watch, the IWC Ingenieur that is meant to look like the one Brad Pitt wears in the movie. And I must have seen at least 12 people wearing that watch at the event.
I have mixed thoughts about that. It's kind of like wearing the band shirt to the concert. I don't know. I think that's a little faux pas, but we don't have to dive too deep into that.
It's so interesting you said that. So, this is actually worth a little tangent here.
A little sidebar? Okay.
Because I thought the exact same thing, in the sense of like the exact analogy you made, like I would never wear a band t-shirt to the concert. And for those that do, more power to you. God bless, do whatever you need to do. But particularly, like, you know, the fact that you and I have been in the music industry for a while, like that is a big do not.
Right.
You know, the same goes for like, okay, I went to that Patek event earlier in the year. You know, should I have not worn a Patek? Should I have like consciously worn a different brand? I feel like that would have been weird. And,
yeah.
And so because this was hosted by IWC, yes, I feel like maybe wearing the watch from the movie is a bit too on the nose. But it also, you remember, you're meeting the GM of the Madison Avenue boutique there. Like, this is actually a time when you get to see them and show them that you're wearing the watch that you bought from them or that you were pestering them for or whatever it is. And so, like, I wore my black ceramic Ingenieur.
I'm in total agreement with you about that.
But I kind of hear you on the wearing the watch from the movie to the movie is a bit strange.
Yeah, it to your point, it is a little too on the nose. I totally understand wearing the brand. But wearing the exact watch from the movie is a little much for my taste. And keeping in mind that considering how limited that watch actually is, I know they have other IWCs that they could have worn.
100%.
Yeah.
And seeing 12 of them in the same room completely ruined the fact that the point that it's limited for me. Like it was the most common watch seen that night for me in a room of like 160 people, which is weird. All right. Summer watches, man. Let's dive in. I want to hear from you what you think makes a summer watch. And I'll just caveat this with like there's no right answer. Right?
Yeah.
To be clear, like you wear whatever you want in the summer. But I think you and I will likely have some characteristics that overlap and maybe some that totally diverge. So what do you think of summer watches?
Well, I think a few things are just, again, considering who you're talking to, will be kind of practical considerations. One of which is just kind of case material. In my mind, a summer watch is meant to be, kind of lighter and maybe more durable because I'm definitely thinking you're somewhere where, there's a beach or there's sand or you're poolside and there's water. So I'm probably sticking to something more along the lines of stainless steel or maybe ceramic. Probably not precious metals, and maybe we can disagree on that, but interested to get your thoughts there. On terms of bracelets and straps, again, thinking stainless or rubber, maybe a sturdy textile like sailcloth or your favorite, NATO. Wow. And again, because we're talking about poolside and maybe some water involved, at least modest water resistance. It doesn't have to be a diver, but something that can handle a splash or a light swim. And I'm thinking color, just something a bit more playful, something fun, something that reflects, summer in that way. And we talked about this a little bit last week, but just the idea that you're only going to be able to wear this watch probably for 4 to 5 months out of the year. If you talk about spring, maybe and the overlap with the summer. And so in that case, just something that you're very comfortable wearing seasonally and kind of putting away. And so maybe that affects the way that you think about it in terms of cost. But that's where I'm landing on what a summer watch is. What about you?
Dude, yeah, and I promise to any listener out here that calls BS, like we did not compare notes before this episode. We've actually both been super busy, and so we just kind of hopped on and started recording. My list is verbatim everything you just said. So like I won't repeat everything, but like lightweight for sure, in metal. I said likely not precious, but that's, it depends on what kind of summer vacations you take.
Right.
I said bright colored is a plus, but not a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Rubber is likely the most preferable, but stainless steel will do, or some kind of sailcloth. Water resistance is a must. I said I was a little more strong with that.
Okay.
And the one thing I added to that list is the ability to go from a barbecue to a pool to dinner at night, all in the same watch.
Okay.
And I say that because unlike me, who's insane and travels with way too many watches, like summer is a time where you are kind of maybe bouncing back and forth between locations, or your home location. You go on vacation once, you go to a friend's house upstate, wherever you're going. Like you want to kind of not have to worry about having multiple watches. And so the idea of like, is this a watch that can go from day to night very seamlessly while also being by the pool and at a barbecue and wherever else? Like can go with a bathing suit and can go with like whatever you wear at night in the summer. That's the only addition I have, but otherwise,
it's a great call.
100% aligned.
Yeah, it's a great call, and how pragmatic of you, Mo.
I mean, I'm trying here.
That's my job.
You can call BS on me because, like, clearly I travel with like 7 watches. But
so, how do we want to break down some good examples and watches that we like in this category?
Well, here's where I think we're going to maybe diverge a bit. So I went a little nuts, and I just, I told you let's come up with some lists of our own of summer, what we think are ideal summer watches across a variety of price ranges. And as a practical person who follows instructions well, like we came with like 4 to 5 watches, which is exactly what we discussed. I have a list of 14 here, so like I can run through a bunch of them and sort of say why I like them, and some of them I can just mention and you'll get it, and we don't have to talk about it.
Okay.
But why don't you start?
Yeah.
Give me one.
Well, I think the watch that really jumped out at me, and if you are a watch collector, particularly on the vintage side, you're very familiar, most likely with Eric Wind. And Eric did this awesome collab with True North. It's called the Vintage Rally Timer, or the VRT. And they did 2 versions of this watch. And the backstory here is that it's inspired by Uno, and it's a chronograph. So the bezel is green. The subdials are, blue, yellow, and red. And the 2 versions, and my favorite is the second collab, but the first version had a black dial. And the second collaboration had a white dial. It's 37 millimeters on a stainless steel bracelet. The retail pricing for it was $390. I think it's an excellent and fun watch. It is sold out, unfortunately, but you can find it on eBay. I just took a look, and I'm seeing them from around $400 to $600. So still very reasonably priced. But I just think it's a fun watch from a name that is well trusted in the watch community, and just something unique in that way, and limited as well. So just kind of fun and playful.
I love it. I've seen it all over Instagram, particularly on Eric Wynn's page. But it's super fun. It's a great pick because it's in a price range where we mentioned last week, like. You're not going to be so upset that you can only wear this watch 3, 4, 5 months of the year. 5 is pushing it probably, but 3, 4 months of the year. I love it. All right, I'll go a little up in price, but we're staying in what I would call affordable. And a brand, and yet another brand I should say that we have never mentioned on the pod, is Doxa. Doxa, the sub 200 is, I think it's a little big. I think it's like maybe 42 millimeters. I'll look it up while it's 42 millimeters. 200 meters of water resistance, as the name implies. And Doxa has like in the what they call the professional is the orange dial, which is like really, it pops. It's a pretty stunning dial. It's obviously like a diver, and I think it looks awesome with a bathing suit and a t-shirt, all the way to sort of either a jeans and a t-shirt or even a jeans and a button down at night. And on that note, they actually come on a beads of rice stainless steel strap bracelet, I should say, or you can buy like color matching straps for the dial. So they have an orange rubber strap, which looks incredibly cool on the orange dial. Another color I would just call out is, what's their name for it? The Diving Star, which is a yellow, and the Aquamarine, which is like a turquoise. But yeah, highly recommend summer watch.
Well, it's interesting. You bring up the idea of size, and mention that the Doxa was a bit larger. Didn't make that a part of what is a summer watch discussion, but I do think you can get away with something a bit larger for the summer. And maybe it dovetails on the idea of like water resistance and, wearing it in the ocean, at the beach or whatever. But there's part of me that kind of thinks you can get away with something a bit larger in a summer watch. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, let me just go into a totally different price range now that you brought that up. One of my favorite summer watches that I don't own, but I constantly look at, but it's just too expensive for me to buy it just for these moments, is the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Divers. They come in like really fun colors. It's actually only 42 millimeters, whereas the other offshores get like 43, 44 millimeter treatment. They have an internal rotating bezel, and really cool color combinations, like a khaki green or like a light blue. I just think they are really, really great pieces that are just meant for being by the pool and sort of summer vacation, if you're trying to flex a little bit, I guess. And it looks good when you're wearing a bathing suit and t-shirt as a 42 millimeter watch. But in my opinion, and on my wrists, like I can't pull that off on a normal day with walking around New York City, in my opinion. I was listening to, or maybe watching a YouTube video, and I can't remember who it was now, but they were talking about like wearing watches out of context, like that are heavily contextual. And one of the examples was like a Royal Oak Offshore, and like wearing it with like a suit, and how weird that looks. Yeah. But wearing an offshore in a beach environment or a pool environment is like, wow, that's a sick watch.
Yeah.
So to me, that like this watch, and maybe most summer watches we're going to talk about, I don't know, well, maybe we'll see a theme throughout. But it's hard to pull off in other situations, and like I said, it's sort of highly contextual. What makes it look great and feel great.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I think for me, jumping up in price point just a little bit, and we talked about this watch I think last week, but it's the Christopher Ward C60 Trident Reef, a great watch, I think that is on pre-order now, so it's actually still available. But in sort of true Christopher Ward fashion, it's kind of configurable in a bunch of different dial and strap colors. My favorite is actually the green dial with a yellow rubber strap.
Ooh.
It comes in both 41 or 44 millimeter sizing. So if you want something a bit larger, it's available to you. And it's $850, and it's available, as I said, for pre-order now. So again, very attainable, not the most inexpensive watch, and realize that, everyone has, different price points that they're comfortable with, but this is something that's available now, attainable for a lot of people, I think, with a ton of different color combinations, with both dial and strap. I think the dials come in sort of a green, a blue, a white, a black, with a bunch of different straps that you can mix and match. So again, just really fun, really playful, and something that you can kind of tailor to your own, to your own style, which is great.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously we talked about that last week as well, and I was really impressed with the release. I'm going to go against what we just said about size.
Mm-hmm.
I think that small wrists need some love too for the summer. And one great example of yet another brand I don't think we've ever mentioned on this pod, so this is fun, is Breitling, which I'm typically not the biggest fan of, if I'm being fully honest. I find a lot of Breitling dials incredibly busy, though there are some dress watches in their Premier lineup that I do find pretty stunning. But for this topic, I'm talking about the Super Ocean, and particularly the Super Ocean Automatic 36, where again, I don't know why orange is sticking out to me so much, but they have this like beautiful orange Super Ocean Automatic 36. It's pricey. It's just under $6,000, I believe, on a bracelet, but it's about $5,300 on a strap. I think the strap is the way to go. Again, just in the summer vibe. They have a orange, which I mentioned. They have a turquoise blue. They have a white. It's all like perfect for the summer, and it's 36 millimeters. So, while we're talking about a ton of these summer watches being just larger in nature, like there are definitely options out there for smaller wrists.
Since we just mentioned it already, probably worth maybe not spending too much time on it, but I think both of us are big fans. Setting aside the crown of the IWC Top Gun Lake Tahoe and the Mojave, which I think works in this instance too. But white ceramic in the case of the Lake Tahoe with a black dial, 41 millimeters on a rubber strap. And you're right, it does in fact have a textile or kind of canvas inlay, I guess. But $8,500, so definitely taking a step up in terms of price. But just that white dial is so stark, it really just jumps out. I think it's at a pretty reasonable size at 41 that works for a lot of people. And the watchmaking, of course, is top notch with IWC.
I love it, as we talked about, except you ruined it with the crown. So thanks for that, Dean.
Sorry. Won't do that again. Or maybe if IWC, if you're listening, you can kind of take that advice and maybe make some changes on an updated version.
Take notes. All right, I'm going to change it up a bit and go to a whole different category that maybe doesn't even fall within our lovely list we had at the top of this. The Rolex GMT Master Pepsi, but not the new version. So literally anything from the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s will work. Obviously, the later you go back, likely the water resistance not so great. But the reason I bring this up as a summer watch is I don't know why, but when I envision someone just wearing a linen shirt on a beach with a bathing suit on the bottom, a Pepsi GMT looks so damn good on the wrist. And there's something about it that just, I don't know, it brings those vibes out for me that this is it's a great summer watch. It looks great in the sun, the blue and the red. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Am I crazy?
No, I guess I'm having this vision of beach somewhere upstate, to your point, just wearing linen, wind whipping by, ocean breeze. And for some reason, as you're painting that picture for me, that vintage Pepsi really, really works. So
I don't even know how to explain it. People are probably listening, being say more. And I don't really have more to say other than, I don't know, picture it.
Exactly.
It fits. And maybe I'm also I'm really jonesing to get one. So I don't know, maybe I'm just putting it in my own head that it's summer watch, and that justifies me buying it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think you should do it. I'm an enabler.
You don't say. We've been talking about Baltic a lot recently on the pod, and I'd be remiss if we didn't mention a couple of watches from their lineup. And maybe I'll throw in a Rolex in there too, just because it's all in the same category. The Baltic Aquascaf is a fantastic, no frills, kind of vintage inspired dive watch. I've thrown a Deluxe rubber strap on mine that has a deployant clasp that is awesome, and I wear it in a lot of pools. Actually, it's kind of a watch that I just wear when I'm getting in water. I love it. I love the look. It's great for the summer. I will say that they actually released a pretty definitive summer watch maybe last week even, It's the Hermetique line, which already exists in the lineup, but they came out with a bunch of like fun colors for it. I want to say that, like, again, they have a great orange. They have a blue, they have a white, they have a yellow. Really, really great. They're 37 millimeter cases. I think about 150 millimeters of, sorry, not millimeters, 150 meters of water resistance. And, it's a Miyota movement inside. It's nothing, nothing you're going to go crazy about talking about the inner workings of the watch, but aesthetically, externally, it's just really fun and great for the summer and super well priced. I'm only seeing the price in euro right now, so forgive me, but it's about 550 euro. Call that what?
Six, a little less than 650, I think.
Yeah. There you go. So that's a shout out to Baltic yet again. I think that might be 3 episodes in a row. And I did say I was going to bring in a Rolex there because I talked about the Aquascaf, like obviously like the definitive diver that the sort of everyone aspires to that doesn't have one, and people that are into watches, like you tend to have one of these along the journey. But a Rolex Submariner, right? You're wearing it right now. Obviously, that's a quintessential summer / everyday watch for all the reasons we mentioned and more. To me, if I may make a little bit of a hot take here, in a conversation about fun summer watches, this may be the most boring watch we mention.
You're probably right. What about a Yachtmaster?
Okay, so I can't figure out the Yachtmaster. Okay, I like the precious metal ones they've come out with on Oyster Flex. I think that has an interesting place in the Rolex catalog. The Yachtmaster, first of all, I don't think it has a deep water resistance.
It doesn't.
So it really is meant to be just above water and not in water. And the platinum bezel on the stainless steel versions is a nice touch, but I don't know that I would necessarily call it a summer watch. Is that weird? I mean, tell me what you think.
No, I mean, it just popped in my head as we were talking about Rolex, and I just immediately thought Yachtmaster. It didn't make my list either, but I mean, what greater summer activity is there than for the upwardly mobile than to be on a yacht? I haven't spent too much time on one. I don't know that I've ever been on one at all, but again, we're painting pictures, and I don't know. There's something about that vision that kind of made sense, but yeah, I'm not really sure. The only one that I would think would be most appropriate, given kind of the parameters that we set in the beginning, is maybe that stainless steel with blue dial, and to your point with the platinum bezel.
Or the titanium version, which I've still yet to see.
Yeah. I've never seen that one in the metal either.
So on Rolex, because we're on it, I think everyone on that listens to this regularly knows that I love my 41 millimeter OP celebration dial. And while it may not really hit all of the line items we talked about in the list, like this is just from personal experience. Every time I wear that watch and the sun is shining, and I've even, I've taken it into water. I've actually wore it by accident the other day on a run on the Hudson. And it just, one, it makes me so happy and it makes me feel like it's summertime, like even when it's not sunny out. And two, like when it's sunny, it just like adds to the moment and the feeling of like, oh, this is a day for fun. And so I'll throw that in the ring as well.
Yeah.
As a great summer watch, though it is continued.
I think that's great. I think that is a fantastic choice for a summer watch. I think it just checks that fun and playful box so thoroughly that I think it makes up for any of the other shortcomings in terms of the criteria that we set earlier. So I think that's fantastic.
You have another one on your list, don't you?
I have one more on the list, and it really jumps up in price now. And it's a brand that we, again, haven't talked about before on the pod. So that's another, kind of point here. And it's the Resence Type 8. They released 2 new versions of the watch, one in, what they call turquoise, and another one in pink. But truth be told, if you look at the dials, which are the most interesting part of this watch, they sort of have these like concentric circles that are done in a kind of a gradient monochromatic blue mostly. And the pink version just has sort of a ring of pink and red on the outside of the dial, which with the blue just kind of gives me the vibe of almost like a sunset. It comes with a pink strap, but I think the blue is also included. It probably makes more sense for me if I were to have this watch on the blue strap. But it's a bit larger. It's 43 millimeters, and the price jump here is to $22,500. But I think it's just really cool, really arresting in terms of just the way it catches your eye. If I were to see someone wear it, I would immediately, want to take a closer look. And I don't know if you've seen it, but I just think it's pretty cool. So, if you have that ability and that price point makes sense to you, and Resonance watches just generally are a bit of a unique beast and something that I think is an acquired taste. But if it's in your ballpark for all of those reasons, I think it's a really cool choice.
Definitely a cool choice, and thank you for surfacing it because I don't think I would have ever seen this watch. I'm looking at it right now, but I agree with you. Like Resonance in general, totally an acquired taste.
Yeah.
I'm glad you jumped up in price point because I got something to say. This is summer watch, everyday watch, one of the, in my opinion, sort of best watches to wear for any occasion, and definitely to me fits in the summer watch category too, is just the Patek Philippe Aquanaut. Mm-hmm. I know the pain around this model in that it is their quote-unquote entry-level piece in steel, but, who has gotten this watch at retail, and I'd like to meet you and hear your whole story. So it's not that accessible, and therefore the price point on the secondary jumps up so much that you're like, why am I spending $70,000 for a steel watch on a rubber bracelet that's time only or time and date, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, so I get that, but that all aside, just speaking purely aesthetically and from quality of watchmaking, the Patek Philippe Aquanaut in either steel, the 5167A or the 5167R, or the travel times, or the new sort of white gold versions in the green and the blue, just phenomenal watches. And again, when you think of someone just sort of walking into a beach party with a linen shirt and some light colored, pants, mm-hmm. An Aquanaut on the wrist is never going to look like a bad idea,
I totally agree. It's funny because, and I can't remember which episode, because John Mayer has done several episodes of Talking Watches with Hodinkee. But he did have, there's an excerpt of one of the episodes that he did where he talks about the Aquanaut, and he makes reference to the idea that if you're wearing one and you see someone with one, that they definitely have a collection. There are other heavy hitters in their collection. It's not something that mm-hmm. would generally be part of a one watch collection. That it's sort of a signifier of a much deeper kind of collector and that sort of thing. And so, as we talk about summer watches and only being seasonal and sort of part of your collection, it kind of serves that purpose too. It really just identifies you as a very serious watch collector, but also says you've got some other heavy hitters in the case.
Totally. I do remember that. And I believe that was the first ever episode of Talking Watches.
Oh, was it the first ever?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And was that the episode where he talks about the famous John Mayer Daytona, or was that one of the later episodes?
That was the second Talking Watches he did.
Ah, okay.
Okay, to round it out, I know I have so many watches on my list, and I have others, but I'm just skipping them. Not even worth honorable mentions at this point because we've covered some great watches. The Omega Seamaster Professional 300M, particularly with a white dial for these purposes, for summer watches, I think is one of the more phenomenal watches out there. Even at 42 millimeters, it doesn't really wear that big, in my opinion, on even my wrist, which is 6.5 inches. I don't love the helium escape valve. I think that's a popular complaint about that watch. Either you love it or you hate it. But irrespective of that, it is a strap monster. Talk about you can put it on sailcloth. You can, I guess, put it on NATO. You can put it on rubber. It comes on a bracelet as well. I mean, This thing, you can bring one watch and a bunch of different straps and feel like you have a different watch on every day and every night. and obviously it passes the water resistance test and goes with everything. So I think it's a fun watch. It's one that we all know and love. If you've been interested in watches at all, you've come across it very early on. It's hard to go wrong with it. And of course, it has in recent years, sort of the tie-in with Bond, and so the model you pick can be Bond specific with the blue wave dial or the No Time to Die like you have, Gene.
Mm-hmm.
But here I'm bringing up the white dial, which I think is just super versatile.
Yeah, and I also think you mentioned that it's a strap monster. Some newer versions come on the steel Milanese, which I think looks awesome. Yeah,
agreed completely. You know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to go against everything I just said, and I'm going to mention another watch because we're talking about strap monsters. Tag Heuer has had such a resurgence over the past 3-4 years, and like I'm loving everything they're coming out with. One thing they reintroduced, I want to say it was 2 years ago, but I could be wrong. Could have been last year. Is the Carrera chronograph Skipper, and this is like a sailing watch, and it comes on this really cool textured strap. It's a blue dial. It's got some orange and green accents on there. It is about $7,000, right? And I think this is one of those watches on the list that falls into a summer watch, but certainly a year-round watch, depending on how you sort of accessorize it. I think it's a worthy nod in this list because it's. I don't think this watch gets enough love in this category, but it is an awesome summer watch.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. And speaking of Tag, you know that I'm a fan of especially some of the watches that they've put out lately. And maybe it rounds out the discussion on F1, but the Formula One Solograph, they're releasing their very first sort of special edition that is race specific, and it comes out this week. It is the green dial, sort of steel bracelet version that is being released ahead of the Great Britain GP.
I believe green bezel, by the way, not green dial, right?
Oh, sorry, green bezel, my bad.
Are we getting that watch?
We should talk about that. I am down.
Yeah, I want that watch.
Okay. Let's do it.
I feel like we had a lot to say on summer watches, and I'm very curious about our listeners and what you guys think. Do you think we're crazy with the criteria for a summer watch? Do you think we missed an obvious one? We want to hear all of it. Feel free to DM us on social, on Insta, TikTok. We're at the Dialed In Pod. And Gene, before we head, I think we should tell everyone that we're going to leave them hanging for a little bit.
Yeah, I think we've decided, just because we've got some travel coming up and a few commitments, that we're going to take a short summer break. We'll be back very soon. We've got a couple of episodes already that we're researching and that are already on the schedule. But you'll be without us for a few weeks. But in the end, we will be back and better than ever.
Have a great summer, everyone, and we'll see you next time on the Dialed In Pod.